Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online character build video with me, Sherman. This is one of my own builds, guys. This is the adventurer character, and we'll get into it in a second, but first, disclaimer. This is a roleplay casual build, not a meta build in any way. Alright, now the story behind the idea of this came to me when I was first playing the Warden a long time ago when I was leveling my Warden. I really wanted to have a good character that could had decent survivability, decent, capabilities to play the content of the game, and wasn't going to be weighted down with a bunch of incapability, if you will. I wanted him to have a little bit of group support. I wanted him to be a damage-focused character. I wanted him to be just everything, because Wardens are really good at being a little bit of everything. So I created the adventurer, and that's where it came from. So let's get into it. And taking a look at the character itself, you can see we are the adventurer character. I chose Imperial for this, mainly because of the Imperial's high health and high stamina worked really good for this. Now you can see our stamina recovery is a little low, but that's fine. Magic recovery is a little low, also fine. Our weapon damage comes in at 3,044 with a weapon critical of 43%, and that's unbuffed. 14%, 14k spell resist, 13k physical resist, which is also fine. And then moving on down here, we are using the Thief Mundus Stone with Tri-Stat Food. Alright, right now this character is set up for mainly for damage dealing. This character's design is to work as more of a group support damage dealer. So you guys will see what I mean when we get into the gear sets. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we have here in the gear. Starting at food and potions. You can see we do have the Tri-Stat Food. We do have Dubious Cameron Throne for if we want to play more focused into stamina DPS, we can. And we can take advantage of that higher recovery rate. We do lose a little bit in max health, and we do lose a little bit in max stamina. We do use Spell Power Pots for when we want to play a healer. And that means transferring all of our attributes in from stamina into max magicka. We do use the stamina power pots for when we want to do stamina DPS. So that's why we have that. And we also use Witch Mother's Potent Brew and the Longfin Pasty and Melon Sauce. This is for when we tank, this is for when we're stamina DPS, and we use Witch Mother's Potent Brew for when we're magicka healing. Okay, now let's go over the gear sets. Starting with the monster set, we are using Selene. Selene's is a really good set for a Warden character because it does give you that extra max stamina, but when you deal direct melee damage, you have a 15% chance to call on a primal spirit that mauls the closest enemy in front of you after 1.3 seconds for X amount of physical damage. This effect can occur once every 4 seconds. If you can keep up good enough DPS, this bear is just going to constantly maul. It's really nice. Moving on to the next set, you guys can guess it, Hunting's Rage. Weapon critical, max stamina, weapon critical, and weapon damage. This thing is just built for pushing your DPS. As you can see, we do have this crafted in heavy because we are wearing a 5 medium setup with a crafted set. So it's better to go heavy in the chest and medium in and everything else. Heavy in the chest, light belt, medium everything else. So, Hunting's Rage, I think I already did this, the weapon damage crit and all that, yeah, really good for that. And then the last set we're using is Powerful Assault. Powerful Assault's a really good set because it gives you a little bit of max health, it gives you a little bit of max stamina, it gives you that extra weapon damage, and then when you cast an assault ability, you increase the weapon and spell damage of you and your allies, or you and 3 other allies within 10 meters by 164 for 15 seconds. This can be used with minor courage and major courage, so it kind of helps in that sense too. So it's kind of a nice set to have in, throwing in there to give you the highest amount of possible weapon and spell damage. Now the spell damage is nice because it allows you to utilize the magicka side of your character, so you can do healing, and then some magic damage. And then the stamina side or weapon damage side is really good for when you're playing physical DPS, or even when you're playing a tank type, you can boost your ability to use certain abilities like Vigor and other stuff. So this only works off of assault abilities. Now the assault abilities itself are a PvP skill line. but you can use them in PvE, like Vigor, Caltrops, and Warhorn. So all three of those is what I use in different situations. If I'm tanking, I'm using Warhorn and Vigor. If I'm playing DPS, I'm using Caltrops. If I'm playing Stam DPS mainly. And if I'm playing a healer, I'm actually using Vigor and Warhorn. So I can do both. And I can keep this better then. Now, moving on to the traits and enchants on the gear. You guys already saw the helm is sturdy, the chest is sturdy, and the legs are sturdy. All tri-stat. Now, the reason I did sturdy here is because the adventurer is a well-rounded character. They're not just made to deal damage, they are also made to tank and to heal. So the sturdy pieces are there to help them when they tank. The divines pieces, which is what all the small pieces are, is divines with max stamina. That's there to boost our max stamina, but the divines is there so we can take advantage of different Mundus stones for different situations. Like when we're tanking, we can take advantage of the higher resistances because we are a medium armor build through the Lady Mundus stone. If we're healing, we can take advantage of the higher magic recovery through the Lady Mundus stone, or not the Lady, the Atronach Mundus stone to give us higher spell magic recovery. And if we're playing this character as a tank or as a damage dealer, we can put into the Thief Mundus stone and take advantage of the Thief Mundus. Alright, so moving on to the jewelry. We are running 2 trirunes with weapon damage enchants. This is so we can play more hybridized. Just like with all my builds, I always do 2 trirunes, and all the 3 big pieces are always going to be tri-stats. The smaller pieces is what I change, depending on the situation. If it's a purely Magicka build, I'll have all Magicka here. If it's a purely Stamina build, I'll have all Stamina. If it's a hybrid, I will have 2 Magicka, 2 Stamina. Now, moving on to the final piece, the necklace. It is an infused with a shield play enchant. This increases our block capability and our bashing capability, or reduces our cost of bash and block. So that really helps us out when we're tanking. Even when we're playing DPS, we can actually block or mitigate more effectively this way. Now, moving on to the weapons. Our main hand is going to seem a little weird. We are using a infused Crusher enchant. This is primarily for when we tank. We use this. And then in our offhand, we use a Nerdhone with a stamina, absorbed stamina. If we're tanking, we replace this with a shield. That's all we do. On the back bar, we are using an infused bow with a weapon spell damage enchant. Now, if you want to play this character as a healer, you can equip a Resto Staff, and you can learn the Resto Staff skill line if you want to. But this class really doesn't need it because we are playing a Warden, and I'll get into why when we get into the skills, which are coming next. So let's go ahead and head on over here to the skill lines. Starting with the animal companions, the way that the Warden and the Necromancer are set up is the skill lines reflect their role. So the animal companion is all about damage dealing, even the passives. The green balance is all about healing and protecting your allies. And then the winner's embrace is all about tanking. A lot of people don't realize that that's how this is set up. But you can use some of these abilities and these other forms for different things. Tanking, healing, doing damage, whatever you need to do. Now, the way this character is set up right now is damage dealer. Now, if I wanted to be a healer, you're going to see I have Soothing Spores, which is a stamina-based heal. I do use Corrupting Pollen. It's a magic-based heal that takes time before it activates, 6 seconds before it activates the heal. I also use Leeching Vines, I also use Green Lotus, and I use Nature's Embrace. All of these abilities are heals that I can use either as a healer type, or I can transfer to more of a hybrid type character and utilize both Magicka and Stamina. It's my choice, and that's what I really like about this. So always make sure you unlock all your class abilities and passives that are going to best suit the way you play your character. Moving on to weapon skills, we are using primarily one-handed sword and shield. So we have all those skills and passives. Dual wield, all those skills and passives. And then same thing with bow. Now, like I said, if you want to learn the Resto Staff, you do have 80 points here that you can spend to unlock all these skills if you want. But remember, in order to play this kind of build, you have to play a majority of the game, or you have to purchase the skill points or the sky shards through the cash shop, and then you still have to play through the main quest lines of those locations anyways to get the rest of the skill points and play through Cyrodiil in order to maximize your skill point capability. You have to do that. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way the game works. Now moving on to armor passives. Light armor, top 3. Medium armor, all of them. Heavy armor, the top 3. Now all these all these passives play into your character. The heavy armor allows you to have higher resistances for when you're tanking. It allows you to have better health recovery. It also gives you a resource return for when you get hit. It also gives you higher health increase. Medium armor gives you greater capability of being a stamina DPS character by increasing your critical, your stamina recovery, and your max, the reduced cost of stamina abilities, improves sneaking, higher weapon damage, and then better roll dodge and movement speed. Reduced cost. Light armor gives you reduced snare effects, reduced sprint cost. Evocation gives you reduced magicka cost and reduced or increased magic recovery, and then this one gives you increased spell resist. Moving on to world skills, soul magic, you're going to take the ones that best reflect your ability to play. I do suggest you get soul summons and soul lock. These are really good. Fighters Guild, all the abilities and passives, I do have them unlocked for different situations. Same thing goes with the Mages Guild, because I never know what I might need. I might want to use Structured Entropy when I tank. I might want to use Balance when I'm tanking. With the Psijic Order, I might want to use some of these abilities when I'm playing Damage Dealer, Healer, Tank, it doesn't matter, so I can boost my capabilities. Same thing with Undaunted. I do unlock all the abilities over here in passives, so I can use them. Moving on to Alliance War. Like I said, this is the assault abilities that will proc the powerful assault. So I use Vigor, Caltrops, and Aggressive Warhorn there. And in support, I use Reviving Barrier, Efficient Purge, and Stalwart Guard. Moving on to racials, we are an Imperial. Imperials work really good as this, but any class or any race can play this. You will have different stat pools based on what you play, based on the different races. So, Tough gives you increased max health, this gives you increased stamina, and then Red Diamond reduces the cost of your stamina, or all your abilities by 3%. This includes ultimates. So being wearing the medium and then the one piece light, we actually get a 5% reduced magicka cost and a 12% stamina reduced cost. And then whenever you deal direct damage, you heal yourself for X amount and you restore stamina and magicka every 5 seconds. So really good there. Moving on to crafting, Alchemy, medicinal use. When using potions, resulting effects last 30% longer. And then Provisioning, Gourmand, and Connoisseur. Both of these making your food and drink last 20 minutes longer. Now we're going to go over the skills we have on our bars, starting with the first skill. We do have Ringing Slashes. This does X amount of damage up front, X amount of damage over time, and it also reduces movement speed of enemies by 40% for 4 seconds. Next ability we have is Cutting Dive. This does a lot of damage, so on a single hit. Then we use Subterranean Assault. This does damage up front, but it takes 3 seconds to activate, and then it applies Major Fracture, reducing physical resistance of enemies by 5,290. Then we have our Bloodthirsty. This here does damage up front, and it rapid fires. It takes 6 seconds to do it, and you basically rapid jab your enemy, and then on the final hit, it deals 300% more damage, and then heals you for 66% of the damage caused. Next, we have Deadly Cloak. This envelop yourself in a protective cloak of razors, gaining major evasion, reducing your damage to area attacks by 25%. And then every 3 seconds, the shrapnel will pulse, dealing X amount of physical damage to all enemies within 5 meters. We have Flawless Dawnbreaker here. This does X amount of damage up front, X amount of damage over 6 seconds, and while slotted, your weapon damage is increased by 5%. Moving on to the back bar. We have Rearming Trap. This also boosts your damage by 3% through the Fighters Guild. And on the front bar, we do get an extra 3%. So you actually get 8% weapon damage. Now this thing sets after 1.5 seconds. It sets and holds for 1 minute. When triggered, the trap deals X amount of damage and an X amount of damage over 6 seconds. immobilizes the enemy for 6 seconds, and also grants you minor force, increasing your critical damage done with all attacks by 10%, and then the trap will reset itself. So this just allows you to keep that minor force up greater. Moving on, we have Venom Arrow. Now you can use poison injection if you like. I like using Venom Arrow because it does X amount of damage up front, X amount of damage over time, and then if you hit an enemy that is casting an ability, you interrupt them, set them off balance, and stun them for 3 seconds. So that's why I like using this. The next ability we have is Endless Hail. This does damage over time in a 5-meter radius wherever you place the circle, and it does it every 0.5 seconds for 10 seconds. So it does basically 20 hits. It's pretty nice. Next up we have Razor Caltrops. This does X amount of damage over time for 12 seconds and reduces movement speed by 30%. It also explodes. The initial attack explodes, dealing X amount of physical damage. Then we have our Betty Niche. This gives us resources back over 27 seconds. It also grants us major sorcery and major brutality, increasing both weapon and spell damage by 20%. And then we have back here Ballista. This does sets down a ballista that just unloads a lot of damage on the enemy over 5.2 seconds. It has a 28-meter range. Right. Now that I've shown you the skills, let's go ahead and go over CP, starting with the red tree. We have 56 in Ironclad, reducing your damage taken from direct damage attacks by 20%. We have 20 into medium armor focus, increasing your physical resistance by 1900. 18 into Spell Shield, increasing your spell resistance by 1729. Moving on over here, we have 31 into Thick Skin, reducing your damage taken from damage over time attacks by 13%. 43 into Hardy, reducing your damage taken from physical poison disease damage by 10%. 43 into Elemental Defender, reducing Flame Frost, Shock, and Magic damage by 10%. And then moving on, we have 40 into Bastion, increasing the effectiveness of damage shields applied to you by 16%. And then 19 into Quick Recovery, increasing your healing received by 5%. Moving on to the green tree, we have 40 into Warlord, reducing your break free cost by 16%. 16 into Sprinter, reducing your sprint cost by 10%. 16 into Bashing Focus, reducing your bash cost by 10%. And then we have another 75 into Mooncalf, increasing stam recovery by 14%. And then 43 into Tenacity, increasing mag and stam recovery of your fully charged heavy attacks by 10%. Moving on to the next green tree, we have 40 into Tumbling, reducing your dodge roll cost by 16%. And 40 into Shadow Ward, reducing block cost by 16%. Excuse me, I gotta take a drink, guys. Alright, moving on. 43 in the Blessed, increasing your healing done by 10%. Middle blue tree, we have 35 in the Physical Weapon Expert. This increases light, heavy attacks of two-handed, one-handed, and shield, dual-wield bow weapons, and werewolf form by 20%. We have 40 in the Master at Arms, increasing your direct damage done by 16%. And then over here we have 56 in the Mighty, increasing your physical poison disease damage done by 12%. 56 in the Precise Strikes, increasing your critical damage and critical healing with stamina abilities by 20%. And then 40 in the Thaumaturge, increasing your damage done with damage over time effects by 16%. And that is the CP. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you guys a quick rotation with this. I'm going to go ahead and put on Dubious Cameron Throne. And then we are going to do this with our weapon power pots. Or stamina power pots. We did 25.6k DPS with this, which isn't bad. It's pretty good. And as you can see, we get 4,420 weapon damage, 58% weapon critical, 80% critical damage, 7,388 physical penetration, and then our Bloodthirst was hitting pretty decently. Subterranean Assault was hitting for 24,000, 14,000 on Celine's, 10,000 on Razor Caltrops, 10,000 on Cutting Dive, and this is the initial hit of Razor Caltrops, by the way, and it did crit. So, and then down here somewhere it'll show the damage, or this is the damage over time. Alright, Now we're going to go over here and see what this guy would look like in a group, organized group setting. That means you would have one of every class, and you'd have all the buffs, everything that you can get from all those different options. Really? Poison injection. You gotta do that to me today. Yeah, we can do about 34k. We can actually get up about almost 40k with this, if you're really good with the rotation. But we're gonna go ahead and let this run its course, and then we're gonna take a look at what all this looks like when it's all done. So I can show you guys what the deep damage output looks like. Now each race is going to have a different damage output. This is primarily for yeah, this guy. Alright, so according to this, if it would take us out of combat, really? There we go. We gained 5123 weapon damage, 64% weapon critical, 80% critical damage, and we were dealing a lot more damage. Our Bloodthirsty was dealing 12,000 on max, 4,000 on average, and it crit 21 out of 40 times. Our Subterranean Assault was hitting for 35k, our Cutting Dive hit for 26, Flawless Dawnbreaker hit for 33, and did 12,000 damage over time. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, this thing's, it's pretty nice. And that is what the adventure looks like in action there. Now I'm going to go ahead and set it up for more solo play. I'm not going to change much about it, except I am going to change one skill on the front bar. We're going to get rid of Deadly, or the Bird. And we're going to actually move these around. Now we're going to go get Bone Shield. And then on the back bar, we are going to get rid of Razor Caltrops. And we are going to get our class Winner's Cloak, or Ice Cloak. And then what we're going to do is we're actually going to go back to the front bar. We're going to dump Deadly Cloak and grab the Alliance ability, Echoing Vigor, so we can solo in the dungeon. Depths of Malatar came with the Wrathstone DLC, if you guys didn't know, which came out right before Elsweyr. It's a very, very difficult dungeon for a lot of people because it is one of the newest dungeons added to the game. I wouldn't say it's rightfully impossible, but it is pretty rough. The enemies in here do have higher health than what they would in a base game dungeon, and so they do take a little bit more to kill. If you guys haven't realized, I really like this character. Now, this used to be my druid design, but I changed it because I want the druid to be a little bit more magical based, and I wanted this guy to be more, like I said, based on more of an adventure type. Oh, I died. I figured I'd die, but not that bad. But that's pretty much it for the adventure character, guys. It is a really fun build to play. And if you guys are wondering what look I'm using the Soul Shriven. This is something you get from playing through the base game. Storyline at the end. And then I'm using the Draugr swords with Draugr bow. And I also use the Draugr shield when I'm tanking. So, but that's pretty much it. Hope you guys liked it. I do really like this build. It's a lot of fun. I know a lot of you out there are probably going, and on the nerd edge about it. I really do have to admit it's a lot of fun. So, but that's it for this build. I hope you guys like it. If you do, you guys know what's coming next. Hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And this guy might see you in game. Bye.